So in class we talked a little bit about how to assemble your paper, but for those of you that need a little bit more information or that want to review the information or that maybe were absent in the classes that we talked about it, I want to talk about how you're actually going to assemble this thing. All of the newspaper projects are going to be on a half sheet of poster board. A half sheet of poster board measures 14 by 22. If you don't have poster board, you can use cardstock or some other heavyweight paper. I don't want foam core, that stuff where it's like two pieces of glossy poster board and then there's foam in the middle, or corrugated cardboard or science fair board. All you really need is a half sheet of poster board. If you're having a hard time getting that, please let me know and I'll see what I can do, but the school doesn't typically have that kind of stuff on hand. But do let me know if that's not going to be possible for you to get. You can also split a piece. Remember, you only need half. So if your friend has some or if you have an extra, offer it to somebody else. You're only going to need your one. And if you make mistakes, you can just glue over top of it. It doesn't really matter. So you shouldn't need the other half for insurance. Once you've got your piece of poster board, you've got your articles written, you've got your paper title figured out, all that stuff, and you've got your piece of poster board, you're going to start planning out what it's going to look like. So there's some basic fundamental rules for how newspaper front pages look, and that's really what you're modeling. So if you can take a look at a copy of a newspaper, not the Fairfax, but an actual, normal, traditional looking newspaper, because it's a booklet thing now, you can see them at Starbucks. You can maybe have one laying around your house. Even if you go to the Washington Post website, there's a view today's print edition option on their website, so you can even look at that to get a sense of what newspapers typically look like, even if that's not something that is in your home. So typically your title is at the top of your newspaper. So I know that I need to have my title, I need to have my 5 articles, I need to have my 3 images, I need to have my advertisement, I need to have my bottom banner. So I have to think about how I'm going to lay all that stuff out. So the way I would approach this is I would start to just sketch out on my piece of poster board, because I'm going to glue over. I'm going to sketch out roughly where those things are, right? So here I'm going to have my title, right? So this will be title of paper. I need a date line, right? Typically that kind of thing goes right below. So this will be my date. My weather is going to be over here somewhere. And then I need to think about how I want to lay out my articles. So if I want to have a traditional layout would sort of be column, and then center content. So that's the approach I'm going to take. You can do it any way you want. You can have columns down the side and then content across. You could have it all columns. It's really up to you. But I think what I'll do is divide this up. So I don't know, it's 3 inches in. Yeah, it's 3 inches. That seems reasonable to me. Maybe I'll have another one over here. And so in this space, I could probably put 2 articles. So I think I'm going to have 2 articles here, so I'll divide that space in half. And then I need to have, so this will be for an article. This will be for an article. And then maybe over on this column where I've also got my space, I might want an article over here, and I'll have maybe one of my pictures. And I'll divide that up somehow. Maybe I'll do picture, article in the middle or something, because I need to have 3 pictures. For my main article, typically in a newspaper above the fold, there's a larger image. So I'm going to have a big picture here. So big image. So that'll be, that seems like a reasonable size. And then the article that accompanies it will be below it. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 articles. So I guess I'll need one below that. I need to have my bottom banner, which will be a few inches. So banner, and then I'll have my ad. So I've got generally where these things are going to go. The next step would be to go to your computer. If your articles aren't already typed, go ahead and type them up. And then you're going to want to figure out a way to get your articles typed into this size. So what I would do the easiest way to do this, I think what makes most sense to me, is to create tables. So if you've never used a table in Microsoft Word, essentially what you're doing is creating a text box, but it's a little bit more structured. So think of it like that for our purposes. So I know that these articles need to be 3 inches by 7 inches, probably. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Microsoft Word, and I'm going to go into Insert, and I'm going to go to Table. And I'm just going to create a 1-by-1 table, just one cell. And then I'm going to go into Table Properties. I can access the Table Properties menu by either right-clicking on the table itself, the cell that I just created, or by going into the Layout menu on those top banners. If you're using Microsoft 2010 or more recent, there's that banner system of menus. So I'll go into the layout, and there's a table properties icon for me to click on. But either way, whether I right click or I go to that other thing, I'm going to go into table properties. In table properties, I'm going to set the size of my table. I'm going to do that by going into the row and into the column menus. So rows go across and columns go down, right? So for the column, that's going to be my height. So I'm going to set my column height to be 7 inches, and I'm going to set my row width to be 3 inches. I'm also going to go into the cell menu. So when you're in the menu, there's tabs across the top. So I'll go into row, I'll set it. I'll go into column, and I'll set my height. And then I'll go into the cell menu. And under the cell menu, there's an options button. And I'll click on options, and then I'm going to make sure, it should be the default, but I'm going to make sure that wrap text is my default, right? Because I want my article text to wrap around in the box. I don't want my cell to get bigger because my text is stretching across the space. So once I've set that, I can either type my article in that box now that I've made this 3x7 box, or I can just, if I've already typed my article text, I can copy and paste it into that box. And hopefully, and I'll mess with the formatting. Maybe I need to make the font bigger or smaller. For mine that I'm gonna put together here, these articles are all 150 words, and they're size 16 font. My headings are obviously larger font, but the article text is size 16. So once I've got that, I'm going to print those things out, and then I've got all my little articles. And so that's where I am, right? So I've got my title, which I printed in size 80 font, and I'm going to attach that here. And I'm going to put that on top of my newspaper. It looks great already. And then I'm going to put my articles that are over here. So I'll put one of those here. I'm going to leave this space because I need to put my weather in there. So I'm going to put one of those here. That's about right. I'm going to put another one in that space. This article, I guess we'll go over here. Oh, I'll move this one. Put that down here. Put this one up here. I'm not doing a very good job gluing these down. I would think that you would maybe do a better job gluing them down because yours is for a grade and mine is an example. So there's that. Some more glue on here. Put this one down. And then I'm gonna do my other side. So I've got, or maybe I'll do the bottom, maybe. You might consider putting your headline on and your bottom banner on, and then measuring your interior space just to ensure that you do have your measurements exactly right, so that you can adjust those if you need to. I used 8.5 by 14 paper to print these two things because I had 8.5 by 14 paper. You can always piece them together. It's not a big deal. So what I would do is I'd get my headline on here, whatever size I want it. I get my bottom banner on here, and then I can reassess this interior space. I can see, all right, so I said these were gonna be 3 by 7, like, does that still work? You know, the 3 inches obviously will still work, but what about my length? And finalize some of those sizes. One thing that you can always do when you finish is, I realized that I had a little more room here than I needed. So I just left a white space. I drew a line in it. It kind of made it look a little more finished. I'm gonna put in my big image, the front page. It's got a caption, right, explaining what it is above the fold here. I'm gonna glue that down. I'm going to maybe put in my date line. I'm gonna glue that down. This is where I've got the date for my paper. I've got my weather that I've hand drawn. Mine's one big piece because honestly what I've done here is I've disassembled a paper I'd already made and I'm reassembling it. So yours would not probably be one finished piece. You probably put the date down first on one strip and then glue the map on top and then glue, you know, I've got an issue number here and the price for my paper. You don't have to have that. It's something I added because newspapers do have those. But so that stuff's on there. So that means actually my picture, oops, needs to go up a little more, right? A gap. Good enough. And then the article that goes along with it. My picture is printed. Your pictures are hand drawn. Mine are printed because I'm not doing this project for a grade. I'm doing this as an example for you. Yours will be hand drawn because that's the requirement for the project. So this article goes with this picture. This is another one of my articles. I'm gonna put it in here. This is my local issue. One of my local issues. I've got one here, one here. I've got a sports thing. I've got my national thing. My human interest. Well, I'll finish the middle. So I've got my ad. That goes there. I've got this article. I've got a caption on my image that this image goes with this article. So I have this image goes with this article, this image goes with this article, but I need to have 3 images. So what I chose to do was make a little heading for a little caption for an article picture that like leads to an article that I'm not writing, but that would be in another section of my paper. So it says school is back in session in Athens. So it says CB1. So that means in section B of my paper, which it looks like, if I look at my bottom banner, is local issues. So page B1 of my paper, there'd be an article that would accompany this. So I'm going to stick that down in the corner. You know what, maybe I'll put it up top. Because then like readers would see it and then follow to B1 and read that article. I'm going to put my last article down. And then I'm going to put the picture that goes with that article. Then what you can do, which makes it look a little bit more finished, I've got everything glued on here and it looks reasonable, right? It's together. Is what I would suggest, you don't have to, but take a Sharpie and go over, this is not a Sharpie, go over your columns and divide it up. Putting that heavy black line, if you're looking at it and you're like, but you can see where it's glued and it's pieced together and I don't love the way it looks. If you just trace around with a heavy black line, it does make a difference. It defines the space a lot better. Make sure everything's glued down really well. When I collect these and little pieces are falling off all over the place, I feel bad because it's hard for me to make sure I've graded everything. Because, you know, if you've got a hole, was there a picture there or was there actually a hole? Did you not put weather on yours, or was there weather there and your tiny map of grease fell off? So make sure you're gluing things down really well. You can draw those heavy lines. You can fill in gaps with, like, I don't know, I put in a little line and make it look a little bit more polished. So you don't need to laminate them. The examples that I had in class are laminated. I laminated them in the library because those were examples and I didn't want them to come apart. So you don't need to laminate yours, but that's essentially how you assemble it. It does take a little bit of pre-planning, but once you know what you're going to do, it comes together pretty quickly. So I hope that was a helpful little tutorial on how to put these things together. You can see an example of this paper finished on Blackboard as well. So make sure you do check that and ask any questions that you have of me before I leave for Turkey. Remember that after school on Friday of this week, the 17th, I'm leaving. I'm getting on a plane at Dulles at 5:15 and I'm going to be in Istanbul. So make sure you ask your questions before then, not after school Friday, but by the end of the school day Friday. Because I'm going to need to leave pretty much right away. So make sure that you've got all those questions answered, because by the time when I get back, this is due. You'll have Mr. Kidd as your sub on Tuesday and Wednesday, and he did this project last year with his honor students because he taught here for 30 years. So he can probably answer some of your questions, but I would try to get them asked before then. I'm not going to be able to check my email regularly from the streets of Istanbul. So please make sure that you get those asked beforehand. It's going to make your life a lot easier. But I think that this should be helpful. At least I hope it is. And good luck with your project.